You're listening to Shoe In, covering the ins and outs of all things footwear, from sneakers to heels, loafers to slippers, and every type of shoe in between. Brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. And now your footwear insiders, Matt Priest and Andy Polk.
Footwear fans, welcome back to the world's largest shoe podcast.
Based on what?
Based on the fact that it's the largest shoe podcast in the world.
If you state it, it's true.
That's true. I mean, I don't know many other shoe podcasts that are
They're a
dedicated.
handful, not like ours.
They're
Ours
too
is
segmented.
unique.
We're broad.
It's sneaker. It's like sneaker.
Yeah, but did you hear the
yeah.
intro? Slippers. Ew,
I did. I hear it in my sleep.
You're listening to Shoe
I
In,
hear it in my
covering
sleep.
the ins and outs of all things
So that's how I determine it.
That's how
Take
you
all
do
the
it.
segments and
Whatever
add them together.
Whatever the voiceover tells us.
Whatever the voice in my head tells me.
That's scary.
Oh, plenty of.
Jasmine.
Huh?
Jasmine.
Oh, man.
She's getting sassy. You notice that?
Yeah, she's getting
I feel like
comfortable.
she
She's getting
extended
really
beyond. I
comfortable.
think now she's almost headed towards 2 years of working with
Yeah.
us. And the
Yeah.
sassiness has increased like 1,000-fold.
Yep. I love it. I mean, she's happy and comfortable and willing to push back on us, which we need constantly. Because it's not like I'm not surrounded by females pushing back on me constantly with 3 daughters, my beautiful wife, and Jasmine.
See, that was well said.
Thank you.
That'll keep you out of trouble.
That's right. It's not as if they listen.
Exactly.
Anywho, our guest is now left.
Yes,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
I'm gone. Thanks, guys. Love the podcast. This is great. I gotta go.
So that voice you hear, folks, is Braden Parker, who is one of the co-founders of Casca Footwear, Casca Shoes. What's
Casca
the,
Footwear.
Casca Footwear, based out of where, Braden?
Vancouver, Canada.
The
All
Great
right.
White North.
The Great White North.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
welcome. And we wanted to, we're at FN Platform, which is fun saying always. And we just did a panel on sourcing emerging brands, mega brands and emerging brands sourcing from China. We had a great turnout, a ton of questions, a lot of people hungry to figure out what it means to be successful in the space. And Braden, that's why we wanted you to come on Shoe In, because we like to talk to emerging brands. And when you're big and famous, you'll remember that one time you're on the world's largest shoe podcast.
That's right. You don't forget that.
You will never forget it. And
You'll be scarred by the end of this. If you don't forget.
exactly emotional scars.
And now I'm actually leaving.
Emotional scars to the side. Your story is inspiring because people don't know what to do. They want to source from China. They want to source from somewhere else. Their dog's barking in the background. And I think you can come on and tell your story. So let's start off. Tell us about the brand. Tell us about your mission and vision, your values. Let's start there, and then we'll work our way through how you got to where you're sourcing product in China in particular.
Perfect. So really, I came from the real estate investment world. I've been in the shoe world now for only a year and a half. My business partner actually has been in it for like 14 years. So he has a lot of experience. But to me, this is all incredibly new. I do have an interesting background in terms of I used to work for the founder of Lululemon's real estate investment company. And
I'm wearing Lululemon pants right now.
Lululemon
There's no
pants.
shame in their menswear.
And so I was there while he was starting up his new brand, Kitten Ace. And I got to experience sort of what it takes to make a brand. And my business partner, Kevin, he used to be a designer at Native Shoes, and then he was a designer at Norse Projects. And then he was a creative director for this Canadian retail company called Livestock. And he came to me right around the same time that I had just finished learning about how to really, what it took to start a brand and how to have a purpose and sort of sense of who you are, and wanting to start a shoe company. And he noticed that no one was taking all of the best, the highest performance technology in running shoes and hiking boots and sort of adapting it for an everyday shoe that could be worn in any versatile environment, like socially and I guess like environmentally. So him and I that's the birth of what is today Casca. The first thing that we went about doing was figuring out what our sense of purpose was. So I'm a humongous fan of the book Start With Why by Simon Sinek. And we knew that we wanted to create a shoe that really meant more than just a shoe. Like, how could it contribute to society in a way that's bigger than a pair of shoes? So we took, a lot of time figuring out what was meaningful to us and how could we contribute back. And so we were both really inspired by the idea of sort of exponential technology changing the world for the better. And, we don't know how to build the next rocket ship, but we wanted to build a pair of shoes for those people that are building that next crazy rocket ship. So that sort of defined who we were and how we wanted to go about building the brand. And that also defined who our target customer was. And for us, that was the future builder. So we're footwear for those shaping the future. And we did months of customer development to figure out, do you care more about support or comfort, or what shoes are you wearing out all the time? What problems do you have? And that really led our product development, which we did over about a year, and then that's how we ended up going to China,
right,
and back and forth. Next thing you know, we're doing a seminar with Matt, and we're talking about how to source shoes in China.
Yeah,
so
it's unbelievable.
It's an
right?
interesting story.
You wake up a year and a half later, and here you are. Talk about that process of taking concept and design to actual construction, sampling, the pre-sale process. It's one thing that you incorporated to mitigate some of the risk. Walk us through that whole thing.
Yeah, so I'm also a fan of the book, The Lean Startup. So we kind of had these like little gate points to figure out like pull the trigger, don't, or change. So throughout the whole process, from even just creating the brand, we were asking our target market if they liked it. And then we went into trying to figure out, which specific functions did the shoe need to have. And so that really started with just sketching. Kevin sketched up a bunch of different examples. We'd show them to our sort of focus group, and we'd see what they thought and what they liked and what they didn't like. And then we went on to sort of 2D drawings and then 3D drawings. And then I'd say it was about 3 months before we actually planned our first trip to China. And we were still back and forth sending drawings, so that when we actually went to China the first time, we had a 3D printed sole, and we're able to actually build our first silicone soled shoe that at least looked like a shoe.
Right.
So
how long were you there for that first trip?
The first trip we were there for, I think, 2 weeks.
It seems to be a minimum.
When you're going all the way over there. And it's also crazy. From Vancouver, it's actually cheaper to fly to Guangzhou than it is to fly to Toronto. So it's incredible. Like, I think
that makes economic sense.
Yeah, I know. Our flight, we were paying, it's like $600 round trip.
Oh my gosh. That's
so
awesome.
And that's part of why it's crazy. You can just go over there and you get so much more done when you are there. So we went over, and then we're meeting with sub-suppliers, and we did our own custom tooling molds for our sole, which was also a big process in itself. And to us, it's an important part of the function and the design of our shoe. So for us, it was like, no question, we're not going to do an open mold. Let's go in and design this properly. And I got to tell you, coming from real estate investment, going to meeting with like the tooling suppliers and doing the ganbei cheers thing.
Do a lot of that.
Yeah, so many ganbeis.
Yep.
You're just pinching yourself, and you're like, what on earth is happening? But it was amazing. It was so cool. By the end of the last few days, you're always kind of like, oh man, I'm so ready to go back to Canada. Like, I want to eat fresh vegetables and go for the longest run in my life. But then after like a couple weeks, you're kind of like, oh, I think I kind of want to go back to China again.
Right.
Like, we need to,
because of the productivity. People don't realize
So
that
productive.
when you're there, you can work 14-hour days because that's what you're there for.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, you're on like this shared mission, and so it's really cool that you had the opportunity to do that, because a lot of people don't. As we heard from questions we've gotten at our panel, right? People are like, do you really have to go?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Big mistake not to, right?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that was actually, I was surprised. I was humbled by how many people were there. Like, there's a lot of people that want to start shoe companies, fair enough. And then the question, the common theme sort of did seem to be like, do you have to go? And it's like, yes, you definitely have to go.
Right.
You should be there right now if you're serious about it.
Another place that you went was a material show in Portland.
Yeah.
Where we're headed here soon, and we're partnering with in more and more ways. Talk to us about the importance of that show.
So the material show is where we actually ended up sourcing the group that we're doing socks as well. So we're the full footwear solution.
Were you mocking your own?
I'm mocking myself. We found our sock supplier there, and coincidentally, they actually also do knit uppers. So we're also using them for our knit uppers. And the material show is so cool. Just like the number of cool technologies coming out of there is really, really cool. Yeah, if Kevin was here, Kevin is the guy that, it was so funny. Kevin was so excited to come and speak. Mm-hmm. He's like, Magic is like the show for anybody in footwear. And then it turns out that he has to be in China reviewing all of our tooling.
That's the business, right?
I know. So, yeah, people are asking the question, do you have to go? And Kevin, the one guy who should probably be here doing this talk about sourcing.
Right.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny.
To break that out, there's two different reasons why you have to be there, and we should talk a bit about that. And from your experience, too, is the first reason is you have to make sure you're there to make sure that it's being run properly, the quality is what you want it to be. And then the second aspect of that is making sure the style is being done correctly, because the workers in China have a different style sense culturally
100%
than we do here in the West. And so if you're not there making sure that that style that you conceived in your mind and you're trying to convey to them that they're trying to sample out or produce out, if it doesn't hold true and it doesn't catch the eye of the Western consumer who you're trying to sell to, then you're wasting your runs. You got to be there.
Yeah,
so,
you're wasting a lot of time if you do it that way.
What are a few things that surprised you in the stages of development, and then also in going to China? What surprised you most about going into a factory and working with factories there?
The biggest surprise to me was actually how much of it is still handmade.
Yeah.
Like, for some reason in my head, I was like, oh, these shoes just must like rip out on assembly lines. But you go there and it's like hand cutting, hand gluing, hand sewing. Like, the shoelaces are put in by hand. Like, It is a very intensive process that I just was completely ignorant to be frank.
Huh?
So that was the biggest surprise. Then the other kind of like cool surprise was just how relationship based the business is there, and how like I literally consider some of my like close business associates the people in China that we're working with. We'll go out and we'll get dinners together, and when it comes down to it, yes, business is business, and when you're having to negotiate, you still have to make sure you're careful of that. But you definitely, like, it feels like the team that we have in China that we're working with is more of an extension of ourselves than sort of this separate entity. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of surprised me a bit. I think I sort of went into it thinking, it's going to be a big business, crazy negotiation, and it wasn't going to be fun. But it was super fun. I love going there.
Right.
Yeah.
When you have to, as a startup, people think they got to do everything in-house or figure it out everything in-house. You have to rely on the force multipliers.
You have to.
A lot of the questions today about just entering, bringing entries in and customs and logistics. And, you have to kind of build out all these outside helpers, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and we've outsourced a ton of our business. We're online first, so we're doing Shopify for our back end and using a third-party logistics company to do all the shipping, and using agency in China to help us manufacture the shoes, and freight forwarder and customs broker for the freight stuff, and the whole which is actually this really cool thing, because all we have to focus on is designing and developing the best possible shoes that we can for our target customer, and then building the strongest possible brand that we can. So those are like the two things that we're like hyper focused on.
Maybe that's the reason why you guys are successful and will be successful, is because so many people try to hold on to this idea of the development, and they want to control the process, and maybe it's just personality driven. I don't know what it is, but every single brand that seems to stall is because they either have a very good business sense but no sense as to what the consumer wants, or they have a great fashion eye and they have a great sense on that, and they don't actually understand the business side. But if you can actually get to the point where you know what the customer wants and you know how to deliver that and tell the story, and then let everybody else around you help you make you successful, then that, for a lot of startup brands, are thinking about doing things, you can't do it alone. And the fact that even for big brands, the factories are doing more and more. The factories are doing they're using Roman CADs to design shoes now for brands.
Yeah.
And they're doing more development. And of course they do the sampling and everything else, but there's such intelligence there because it's hands-on there that we don't have so much in the West anymore.
Which is also really how I think a lot of cool innovation comes about. Like, we go over there with ideas, and then like the manufacturers have been making shoes for longer than Kevin and I have been alive.
Right.
Like, they know what they're doing.
Right.
So we go in and we're like, hey, we want it. Like, I would say China is amazing. That you can go over there and they will be able to make anything in the world. But they don't necessarily... The cool part happens when you go over there with an idea of what you want, and it's that marriage of kind of Western design thinking with their ability to manufacture anything, where you just see these crazy cool innovations that even small groups can now have and happen.
And they know how to do it in a business way where it's like, I know what you're asking for, but if we did it this way, it saves money. Right?
Yes,
it
100%.
does X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
It's better for us. It's easier. We save money.
Yeah.
And so it's like building upon that idea. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What about the pre-sale process? Walk us through that, because there's such an important aspect when you're, no matter if you're a large multi-billion-dollar corporation or you're a startup, inventory is your biggest liability financially.
Sure.
So how did you guys start, and how do you continue to view that process moving forward now that you've established yourself? Kind of how are you going to continue to use that opportunity, if that makes sense, of engaging with your consumers?
The pre-sale process is really cool because you're able to really get an idea of the demand for your product before you've actually started receiving it. That being said, it's hard. There's that big sort of barrier that people aren't going to get their shoes for 3 to 4 months, depending on where you are and when you place your order. So you really have to find, for us at least, what we focused on early was finding like our true 1,000 customers and making sure that they knew where we were in the process and being completely transparent so that when it came down to them buying a pair early, and we didn't give a discount, we didn't do any sort of, like, we actually looked at doing Kickstarter or doing Indiegogo, and we decided, no, let's just do it ourselves. Like, we have a really great group of customers that, we engage with. Let's just do it. And they knew where we were in the process, so I don't think they had as much trouble pulling the trigger on buying a product early.
So how did that process? Did you guys like give updates on a website, or did you send out information and say we're in phase 2, phase 3, phase 4?
Yeah, exactly. So basically all of that. So like we have our the traditional social media channels, and what our strongest channel actually is our email list. So we have like over 1,100 people on our email list when we first launched the product, and probably like 25% of them ended up buying through the pre-order early. And that was just sort of building our community and explaining it. Like, it kind of goes back to our purpose of like, we focused on people that were excited about building the future, and we're engaging with them since day one. And by building that relationship, we were really able to have a strong brand and create an organic relationship online, which is really cool.
That is cool. So what's next for you guys? I mean, how are you kind of building this out in your mind? What's your vision, and what's success look like for you in the next year and a half?
Yeah, I mean,
the industry.
I have to say we've been following Allbirds, and we've been following Koyo and Greats, and they've done an amazing job. And so I envision us being a brand similar in size in the next couple of years, and they did it amazingly fast. So it's becoming definitely the barriers to entry are low, and it's becoming a more competitive space. But I think that with a really great product and a really great brand and a group of sort of true fans that are part of your customer group, that you can grow really quickly. So
yeah. So that's you're bullish on the opportunity.
So yeah, definitely bullish.
Because I think that, as we talked about, I think agility is the name of the game, right? It's how do you build agility into your processes? And if you're brand new, it's a lot easier. We've seen a lot of our heritage companies, if you will, that are 100 years old or 40 years old, and building agility into corporate infrastructure is really hard to do. Now, when we talked about, Andy and I run this quite often, where we're bringing into life this material exchange, which is the digital database of materials, and working with companies that are just trying to employ digital design into their into their design core at their company, and how there's pushback on that because people are used to sketching on paper. And so just small tweaks that would be transformational for the industry are difficult to accomplish because of
institutional inertia.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
I'm really interested to see what happens. Like, I don't know if this happened down here, but up in Canada, you kind of had your core beer companies that sold all the beer. Like you had, Molson Canadian and Anheuser-Busch, and then all of a sudden now these craft breweries are butting up like crazy, and they're combined. They're taking a sizable market share from these big companies. I kind of think that might be what we're going to see in the footwear industry. I think that the barriers to entry are low, and you can really focus on your niche and focus on who your target customers are, and you can use all these different tactics to do it that are a lot less expensive, and it's been democratized. So I think that's where I envision the footwear industry going, but who knows?
Yeah, absolutely.
And what's the website people can go find out?
Yeah, so
more?
Casca, after the Cascade Mountain Range, so CASCA.com. And
how many shoes do you have up on the website now?
Right now we're still in pre-order, so we're not getting any of our so we're not getting any inventory until the fall.
Okay.
So we're definitely still in the
And how many different
stages.
shoes? Just one shoe, two shoe, three?
2 shoes, 2 colors. So
Two
we have
shoes, 2 colors.
instead of going, we wanted to really go for a timeless sort of business model. So we don't go for seasons, we go for climates. So we have basically our wet cold shoe and our hot dry. Our wet cold is a waterproof leather. Our hot dry is a breathable knit slip-on. And then it's black and gray. And
so as a startup going into China, another question we always get are minimum orders and issues like that. So how do you find a right partner that's willing to take a shot on a emerging brand?
I would say that's where we were the most fortunate. We really went in and we built the relationship early on, and we're completely transparent with where we wanted to grow and how we were going to do it. And
they could probably sniff out the BS, right? Somebody comes in
and
says they're going to put in 1 million minimum order.
Yeah, exactly. They laugh you. Yeah, exactly. So and part
Gombe!
of it, Gombe. Yeah, exactly. You're going to do it 1 Gombe per order. But yeah, and we actually talked about that earlier in our this seminar that we just done. We really had to get our manufacturers on board early with us having a low MOQ and just explain we're doing a direct consumer minimum order quantity.
Got it.
So we had to explain, we're going to it's going to be low to start, but we're doing direct consumer, and this is who we have on board. So and we also talked about this, we have a board of advisors that's been incredibly helpful and has helped in every way. So we have the VP of operations for Lush Cosmetics is our financial advisor, and he used to be the CFO of shoes.com.
Okay.
So having him involved has been incredible. The chief marketing officer of Saks Underwear is our marketing advisor, so he's also really well connected. And then our product advisor was the director of product at Segoy Bike Apparel. So
and what do these people do? That you contact, you say, we're thinking this, and they bounce ideas off and help you think through it more?
We do, yeah. So we basically have it set up so that once per quarter we do a 1 to 2 hour meeting with each individual. And then we also have quarterly board of advisor meetings with them all in a room. And if anyone that's listening and wants to start any sort of business, I can't recommend it more than enough. The network that all these different guys have and the help that they've given, and it's just so that's the very first thing we did. And I think having them on board allowed us to sell our idea and our vision to everyone else as well. They're kind of our first point of validation. So being able to go to China and talk to our group there and say, look, this is the people we have on board. This is what we're doing. Please help us deal with low MOQs to start. That I think also helped a lot.
That's a great point.
That is a great point. That is awesome. So thanks for coming in and sharing your story, and we'll be tracking you. That's what we do as an organization. Exactly. And so keep us up. We'd love a year from now for you to come on and say, we
did it.
Knocked it out of the park.
We did it.
100%. I look forward to that.
I'm live in China,
Yeah, exactly. Next time we'll get Kevin in here. He'll be gone bang with everybody.
We know. We go to China probably once or twice a year on average. Been there 20 times the last 9 years, and we know the Gombe. That's why I switched to what we call white wine, which is just water. Because you just will not get out alive if you're not smart about it. So, oh my gosh. So, Jasmine.
Yes.
That's your cue.
We're going to
Gambade
do
up.
What You Got, Whatcha Gettin. That's a segment that we do when we talk about what we have on our feet currently and what we're planning to get. So I will start us off. I have a pair of sandals on right now, but we are transitioning to the cold time, of course. So I want a pair of cowboy boots. We had a brand on here that had some great cowboy boots, and I haven't worn any before, so I want to try them out.
I'm telling Jasmine, I just spent some time making cowboy boots at the H.H. Brown factory in Pennsylvania, and we should send Jasmine with the shoe and crew to make boots and just tape the experience. So that would be awesome.
Your daughter's made some great ones, so I got some competition.
It did.
Did you see a picture of them?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
They're
Good to
awesome.
post those up.
Yeah.
Should.
Minus the kids. We don't want the kids in there.
Block out their
You know
faces.
exactly.
The happy faces on
Just
top
put it
of
across their eyes, right?
Oh, that's so creepy.
We can like take their voice and I was making boots. Is that child labor? I don't know.
Pretty
Goodness.
much.
Goodness.
What about you, Andy?
I got on Adidas Boosts, but I've been talking about it for a while, but I'm gonna pull the trigger in the next couple of months and buy some Allbirds.
Do it, man.
I keep hearing about how comfortable they are. We had Joey come and talk at our summit about design with sustainability in mind, which is so important. And then based on that and things that we're working on, we have a design summit coming up in October in Long Beach. And we encourage people to go to fdra.org to find out more about that if you're a designer or developer. But the whole idea of making shoes that are sustainable at the very start of the process.
Right.
It's very novel to a lot of people, and it shouldn't be. But we're going to cover, I think, based on his conversations and what a lot of people are trying to do in Europe, try to help people get there. And I think it's more and more important to all of us that our shoes are compliant and sourced ethically and sourced with the environment in mind.
And stylish.
Yeah, you can be stylish.
Maybe not.
I mean, yeah.
All right.
What about you, Matt?
I've got a proud Canadian footwear designer, John Flugel. I got Fluvogs on.
Oh, nice.
So, I wore them just in honor of you.
Matt's got the
Braden.
flu.
Thank you. I used to run into him in Vancouver sometimes.
Oh,
Really?
cool.
I would love
Yeah,
to
when
actually
I-
meet
yeah.
and talk. I would love to have him on Shoe In all honesty, because he's kind of a personal hero of mine for a variety of reasons. And what I'm going to get Cascas. I mean, I
You
have
should.
to at this point.
It's
Pre-order.
totally your
I'm
style.
emotionally
FDRA
involved.
pre-order.
You got to pre-order.
Braden's my buddy.
You're forced
I'm
to now.
What's the
Yeah,
price?
even if you,
What's the price points?
So for the waterproof leather, it's $208.
Okay.
And for the breathable knit, it is $178.
Is that U.S. dollar or Canadian
That's
dollar?
U.S.
All right.
Okay.
And that
so-
includes free returns, free shipping, 30-day, like no questions asked. If you don't like it, send it back, kind of thing. That's
What do you have on your feet now? What
so
you got?
I am wearing a prototype of the Casca Avros.
Okay.
The final prototype.
Is this the light leather?
This is the
one?
leather version. So
Okay,
this is
this
the
is-
waterproof leather.
Okay, great. Okay.
And I'm actually really excited that it's a breathable waterproof leather, so my feet aren't actually that hot considering it's 105 out there right now.
Right. And the
and
other ones are the knitted
The
ones.
knit, yeah, the
Okay.
knit version, so
Okay.
the Avro knit.
Got it.
And what I'll be wearing next is going to be the full production final
Yeah.
Avros this fall.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm going to personally fly to Matt, deliver him a pair.
I'm ordering
So-
them right now.
So I see
Shop.
Andy in the leather ones, but I see Matt in the
I'm a
knit
knit
ones.
guy.
Yeah. I think Matt should get the
Oh,
gray
I love
knit
the
ones.
I like the black knit
The black ones I see you in there, but I see Andy more in the black.
All right, I'm doing it right now.
I think I could see you guys in both.
I'm not a 5.
Yeah,
That
of
must mean you
course,
both have to
yeah.
order 2 pair. Maybe even
We're
all
both
of
the
them.
same size. We can both
you can
buy
share.
different types and just mix
Yeah.
and match the shoes.
Mix and
Oh,
match.
yeah.
That's it. That could be the new style.
That's very cool.
I like it.
It's very cool.
I'm doing it right now, man. Braden's doing it right now. Apple Pay makes it way too
Done.
easy.
Tell us the URL one more time as we head out.
Casca.com.
Casca.com.
www.casca.com.
Braden, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Andy.
Thanks for sharing your journey with
Jasmine,
us.
Matt, it's been amazing. What an
Great.
experience.
Good. Folks, this is Shoe and Show. We're covering the ins and outs of all things footwear. covering all types of different issues impacting the industry.
Done. Just bought a pair of Cascas, baby.
There you go.
He showed me it's true. He's
We
not
verified.
lying. I'm glad I didn't leave after the first 2 minutes.
That's right.
Made a sale.
In just a minute, I bet his phone blows up like a da-da-da-da-da-da. We had another order, you know?
Gun Bay.
Oh,
That's hilarious.
folks, we're at shoeandshow.com. You can see our complete catalog. We're up to about 120 episodes now and climbing.
Man.
And
That's awesome.
so this really, the Shoe and Show was, people always ask, like, how did this get started? But it started by conversations in hallways, at trade shows, at events. And it really was an idea of how, well, it's like lobbyists, right?
Bathrooms, hallways.
whatever it is. But
Dark
it's really about
rooms.
how, not everybody can make it to a trade show. Not
Yep.
everybody can make it to an event. So a lot of footwear people across the globe listen in because we're bringing interesting ideas and interesting people to talk about the footwear industry
Yep.
so that we can all get better, right?
Yep.
That's the goal is let's all succeed together. So keep listening out there. If you have ideas for guests or topics, let us know. But until next time, Shoe-In is out.
Shoe-In has been brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. For information about FDRA, visit fdra.org.